My name's Michele O'Marah. I'm a video artist.
So then the first video art project that you made was the For Those About to Rock
Yeah,
videos?
it was sort of like 7 short videos, and it's kind of like my, history of indie rock or punk rock, I guess you would say. The Velvet Underground, the Runaways, the Germs, Pussy Galore, Babes in Toyland, Bikini Kill, and Dinosaur Jr. Each video is about a different band, and it's formatted like a preview of a movie that was never made. It's
like
kind
a fake trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Were these like your favorite bands?
I mean, I respect all the bands that I made videos of, and
Right.
and I liked some more than others, but some just had like really great stories.
What's your fucking problem? We're just a fucking band, man. Don't you know the difference? A fucking punk rock band, you British jerk.
And you were making these on a regular video camera, regular videotapes?
Yeah, like everything is like super lo-fi, I mean, that's like this aesthetic that sort of like always stayed with my work, like from beginning to end, it's kind of this like do-it-yourself. Like everything is super homemade. I mean, I've never had like a lot of money, but it's always been this desire to sort of like complete these like big projects on like tiny budgets and stuff.
The Velvet Underground one is very minimal. There's, Rob Pruitt doesn't even
Yeah, they
wear
don't even
a
have
wig.
like costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just like, that's when I was like, oh, costumes are bullshit. So like everyone's dressed like it is the 90s. It's just in my shitty apartment, but they're pretending they are the Velvet Underground.
Right, so the only way you know it's them, or who they're supposed to be, are kind of like what they're saying and the way they're acting.
Right, yeah.
Lights and dancers. Wait, let's see. A really cool female lead singer.
I went to school, and like I was a photography major, and like postmodernist photography was all about like political correctness, and people wanted to talk about like sex, like I'm gay and here's my work about being gay, or like I'm black and here's my work about that, you know what I mean? And like, so to me, like I was like, well, I'm like punk rock, and so here's my work about my community.
Well, the Bikini Kill one caused some waves.
I mean, okay, yeah, Kathleen Hanna's like super iconic and like really empowered a lot of girls, and that's like really great, and I can respect that. Like it's really simplistic and idealistic, and like as a sort of mature person, like I have a right to sort of criticize it. It doesn't mean like I don't have a certain kind of respect for you, but
Right, it's like you love these bands, but you're also making fun of them.
Yeah, because
they're crazy.
Well, because it's kill your idols. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's the whole Sonic Youth. That's their song, right? Because it's like ooh, these people are like they're your heroes. They're like amazing. They're amazing. You know what I mean? But they're not.
Hey, frat guy up front, what the hell do you think we're doing? Let the ladies stand there. We're not playing the show for you. Why don't you go see some cock rock?
In the film about Dinosaur Jr., it's basically J Mask is sitting on a couch and he never moves.
Right, like he's just a big blob.
And then in the Pussy Galore story, they're just crazy junkies, and you see Jennifer Harriman wearing this big puffy coat, and it doesn't even look slightly glamorous.
Yeah. It's true.
What am I, the only fucking junkie that, wants to get paid in dope?
You're the only one stupid enough to ask to get paid, that's for fucking sure.
I mean, I really made it for like my peers in a certain sense, and that's sort of just like what I was doing, at that point. But when I look sort of back at it, you know what I mean? Like I like the project for what it is, but like I feel like I kind of wouldn't do that now, like make something so sort of so about me.
Fuck you!
And the movie is Valley Girl, which is like my favorite film from the 80s because it's, it's really romantic. It's like kind of like a new wave, like Romeo and Juliet story, like 'cause she's from the Valley and he's from Hollywood, and all her friends are into the mall and all that stuff.
Like, he's not so awesome. Awesome's not the word.
I'm sure.
His friends are, you know, grungy, sort of punk rockers. They're more like new wave guys.
Okay, smart guy. We're here, now what?
Mingle!
And of course, when like they get together, her friends don't like him, and like there's all this peer pressure to break up.
They're HUDs. They're juvenile delinquents. You've lost your mind.
But then there's a big romantic ending where he like crashes the prom and like runs away with her. The lead actress in Valley Girl, like she's the only like real actress that I've ever used.
What are you doing here? Do you have a death wish or something?
And I really wanted like this like sense of sincerity like in the project.
When you decided to remake this, you decided to remake everything about it. Like you remade the music.
Yeah.
I'll stop the world, I'll melt with you.
I had this like really small area where I'd have this like 3-walled set, and everything that was sort of like a public space was shot in that. All the places that are actually like people's living spaces are just either like my friends' apartments or my apartments. And then within them I would like alter the spaces. I made some 80s paintings, or I like made a couch. I thought the books were too distracting. So yeah, I made these like little fabric covers. So it was just this kind of abstract blue and red background. Like failure was a part of the formula for Valley Girl, because like one person can never replicate the job of a whole film crew. Like it's an obvious fakeness, like with a slight retarded quality to it. Deconstructing narrative, that's my whole thing. That's my big thing. Because I'm trying to talk about maybe the sort of subtext of like what's in the Hollywood, you know, what's in the movies and what's in what we watch on TV and on films, which, you know, is like such a huge part of culture. Faustus's children.
You have to tell me about that one.
A group of kids, they murder their friend in the woods, but then one by one they wander into the woods where they're avenged by the supernatural force of their dead friend who kills them all. Oh, it's a collaborative piece. I did it with my 2 friends, Dave Jones and Tim Jackson. I would ask other people like, well, what is it you want me to make? Like you think, you know, like you think of the genre, or like you write it and I make it. And so, and I wanted to do something with Dave and Tim because they're both really smart. So I was like, what do you want to do? They were like, oh, supernatural thriller. We want to basically kill rich kids. And I was like, okay, cool.
You're not going anywhere.
So this is like a written script, like something that I never did before. It's not like an appropriation. I mean, it's a little bit of an appropriation. It's based sort of on this book, A Secret History. So Dave used that as his like sort of base, and I watched a lot of movies that were sort of like Wilt Stillman films, like Metropolitan and Barcelona and 6 Degrees of Separation. And I would like write down lines that I thought were good, and so it's like a half that and half his own writing is sort of what the script is.
It's considered unacceptable to be a snob. We don't talk about our money. We don't talk down to people we can't stand. So why is bourgeois considered a term of contempt?
Every interesting cultural movement is an attempt to overthrow the bourgeois.
They're real highfalutin. They're real highfalutin. And it was the first time I got a studio. Like I'd never had a studio, and so I was like, oh, we're gonna build a real set. And I built the cabin, and then I built the woods. There's like a wall, and it's like 10 feet by 10 feet, but it's just like cut paper. I mean, it took me like 2 months cutting all the paper by hand and like gluing it by hand.
But it's your aesthetic.
Yeah, and it's like really, it's handmade.
Your intensity frightens me.
Well, the video is called How Goes It with the Black Movement.
In 1966, the Black Panther movement was founded. Prominent among the founders were Bobby Seale, who is its president, and Huey Newton, after Eldridge Cleaver, probably its best-known champion.
Well, it's a remake of a show from, an episode of the show Firing Line, which is William F. Buckley's political show that ran on PBS, and William F. Buckley was like a sort of like really iconic conservative who had this like talk show for like almost like 20, 25 years. And he would essentially just like invite sort of more like left-leaning people onto the show and sort of debate topical political topics with them, you know. And on this particular episode, he invites Huey Newton to come on the program.
Huey Newton, you will remember, was tried and convicted of killing a policeman, specifically of involuntary manslaughter. Free Huey Newton was to the late 60s what the slogan, "Who promoted Perez" was to the early 50s.
And I just found it to be like a really, really intriguing piece of television or media, I guess, because they're such like so obviously opposites, you know. So you just like sort of have a lot of expectations on what you're going to think about them, and you know, and they turn out to be a lot more complicated, and the dialogue that they're having is really nuanced. William F. Buckley is played by the artist Maynard Monroe, who's very dramatic.
For the record, while you were relaxing in jail, I was working.
You know, because he was like so kind of over the top with sort of his intonation, and it's very campy, but it's actually, it's just really like a sort of more campy version of like how William F. Buckley actually is.
Mr. Simkin, I think we have just about a second.
I was like expecting it to be, oh, I'm just gonna like love Huey Newton, like he's so great, he's so amazing, and I'm sure William F. Buckley's a big asshole and blah, blah, blah. But then, like, it's really confusing when you first listen to it, and I like didn't understand what Huey Newton was saying. I was like, God, what is he talking about? And then like William F. Buckley would be like, you're just babbling, and I was like, he is. And I was like, am I agreeing with William F. Buckley?
Contradiction is the ruling principle of the universe. It gives motion and matter, and contradiction is based upon eternal strife.
Everything is really homemade in the projects. So as an artist, it was almost like, oh, I'm going to go outside of the film and make actual artworks, but that are related to the piece, as opposed to just like a backdrop that's in the piece. Huey Newton was imprisoned, so the Black Panthers and their supporters would wear these Free Huey buttons. William F. Buckley ran for Senate or something, and so that was like his political button. We dragged him up a little bit. They're also like sort of takeoffs on slogans from the Black Panthers. Like these are pretty, you know, straightforward. They're just character portraits. It's William F. Buckley. And you can see he's a lot more cynical. Huey Newton's a lot more sort of innocent. And that's actually was a banner that was in the background. The introductory shot starts on it and moves out, so you like know where they are. Like I'm interested in this piece, but I'm also interested in historical distortion, and I'm interested in construction of media, you know. You're watching something that's been designed for you by somebody else, you know, so it's like how much can you trust it?